Hi everybody, welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is, of course, January 25th, 2020. I was going to say 2019 for a couple seconds there. You know, it's getting used to the new year and all. Anyway, of course, it is another exciting day with a lot of interesting topics to go on about, and we have a special guest with us today. We have one of the people that is working on the Blinkx system from Move 38. God, I've forgotten which person you are.
You're gonna butcher my name. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's John Bobrow.
John Bobrow. John Bobrow.
You got it.
Okay. Just so my brain works. It's been as Joe and I are both recovering from plague, you know. It's excusable a little bit from us, you know.
We try and present ourselves as a team, so hey, as long as you say this guy from Move 38, we're gold.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk with John for a bit, and then we also have some other things on the docket. Afterwards, we will talk about my time at PAX South. Theros Beyond Death has come out for Magic the Gathering. D&D has a new Unearthed Arcana, plus they've also announced a new book, The Guide to Wintermount, or Wildermount. Pathfinder 2nd Edition has the Extinction Cursed Player's Guide out, and there's a Dishonored RPG announced by Modiphius. So, little mixed bag today for topics. But anyway, why don't we get into the most important thing here, because we have a guest. That's always the most important thing. So, why don't we start with the very basics, and why don't you tell us about your company, what you do?
Sure, yeah. So, I guess I can start out by about 3 years ago, I founded Move 38. We build tools for creativity, and this year we are releasing what we kickstarted last year, which is the world's first smart tabletop game system. And what I mean by that is we make games that take advantage of intelligent game pieces. They're called Blinkx. And Blinkx are little hexagonal magnetic tiles that have intelligence built into them. They respond to touch, they communicate with their neighbors, and each one of them knows a single game, and it can teach all the other game pieces how to play that game. So this year has been an exciting year for us because we didn't just release a game system, but we released the first 12 games for the game system, 4 of which were actually made by our community. It's an open source platform, and so not only are we making games for Blinkx, but anybody who owns Blinkx can make their own smart tabletop game.
Cool. All right. What got you into making Blinkx? Kind of led you to the path that you got to creating this.
Yeah. So one of the fun things about starting a game company and not being so I've played games growing up, plenty, but I never really considered myself part of an in-crowd in games, and I didn't set out to design a game system. 5 years ago, I was at the MIT Media Lab and a group called Playful Systems, and I was studying natural systems, things like the way ants and termites cooperate or the way forest fires emerge, complex behavior. And I was creating these little physical, pucks to play with emergent behavior in a physical way. I thought, this is something that's kind of I've played with on a computer. I used to do interactive museum installations that had these kind of behaviors, but what if I brought this stuff off the screen and into the physical world? It wasn't till one of my colleagues at MIT, who happened to be a game designer, was like, "Hey, John, do you mind if we use these for making games?" I was like, "Oh, that seems cool." And we sat down and in a 3-hour session, prototype, design, and play tested that game. And the game was nominated for an Indiecade award. It was like, oh, this is this is not only cool, but it's fun. It's a good platform for it. So that's kind of where it started.
The initial origins of it all.
Yeah, there's actually kind of, I don't know if this is, I mean, whenever I talk on startup podcasts or things like that, they're always curious about like the founding process. And when I was at the Media Lab, somebody happened to be passing through the Media Lab who was a hexagonal abstract expert board game designer. And he saw what I was working on and said, if you're thinking about starting a company, I'll quit my job and start working on this right away. And that seemed a little impulsive to me. And that guy, he canceled his flight that evening and stuck around and wrote tons of notes. I happened to be hosting like a game jam that evening. And it was, very clear that, a couple months after I handed in my thesis, I called him up and was like, let's do it.
Cool. Okay. It seems like an interesting origin. And you said you weren't really as big into the like tabletop gaming scene as you were kind of growing up, so it's kind of like putting into it. Did you have a lot of experience at all with anything related to it, leading you to this here? Or was it sort of like diving headfirst into something completely new?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't totally blind. My background's in math and design. For years, I built training simulators for the military that taught soft skills. I then went from that work to building interactive museum installations, things for like the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, or Smithsonian, or Tenement Museum in New York. So interactivity and was kind of my bread and butter for a long time. Tabletop is just something I grew up playing, a lot of puzzles and games. It was kind of my way to connect with like my grandparents and my parents. It was something we could sit around and do together. It didn't matter your age. And I really, really liked that. I mean, I think I actually recall, trying to think how old I was, but my dad always had a whole bunch of different puzzles and gadgets around the house, and one of the gadgets was a robotic arm that would play chess. It had a telephone modem, this was pre-internet, and I don't know, didn't seem all that unique. Like, I thought it was cool, but I don't think I comprehended that most people didn't have a robotic telepresent chess arm in their home.
I mean, yeah. Didn't everyone have one of those?
It was incredibly, it was adorable too. I mean, it's just like pretty rudimentary. Like, now you'd be like, oh, okay, like, I get it. It's not too difficult for somebody to make themselves at this point. But either way, like, the animation of the arm, it would like snap its claw when it was angry, and like it was cool. It was a little bit of the future.
Joe, do you have any questions before I keep going on? So I don't.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So you did mention that you did a Kickstarter for this. How did everything go with the Kickstarter? How's your experience with that?
So this was my 4th Kickstarter campaign, and the first 3 were for different kinds of products, things I had designed that maybe had a little, I don't know, felt a little less pressure in some senses. My first Kickstarter, I think I only needed to raise like $5,000 to manufacture the thing. Making smart tabletop game system has electronic components. For me, I care a lot about the look and feel of the objects, so like they need to be the right weight and have the right finish, and all these things that you can get kind of can become pretty expensive when you're manufacturing a product. Mm-hmm. So our goal was $75,000. It was just the bare minimum of what we would need to really tool up and manufacture these things. My main goal was for us not so much to hit a financial target, but to hit an audience. And so when we launched the campaign, my internal goal in my head was, I want 1,000 backers. I want to break 1,000, like reach an audience that's big enough that it's not like, well, this thing kind of works because a lot of friends and family, or, and it's like, the fact that we broke that barrier was huge. We ended up raising nearly 200% of our goal, and it allowed us to ship 150 developer kits 3 months after the Kickstarter campaign, and then put me into a pretty interesting but also difficult part of the company, which was manufacturing the consumer-ready version of this product. I guess, depending on how much time you want to spend on it, there's we were very ambitious. I set I think, reasonable shipping goal, but this was probably my first foray. This was definitely my first foray in understanding cash flow and building a business. And my previous Kickstarter campaigns, it was, I want to bring this product into the world. But I was sustaining myself on the other kind of work I was doing. And so this was kind of the first time that it was like, okay, we reached a point where we could ship our product. But if we shipped it and spent the money of all the postage, we had like $20,000 worth of postage to, spend to ship all the products. We would be out of money as a company.
Right.
And that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with from a financial business. It was a first for me, and it was pretty crushing. And I didn't exactly know how we'd come out the other side, but all I knew was that I was going to deliver on this thing. And so I didn't really worry about whether or not I was going to deliver. I just wasn't exactly sure how to get past that hurdle.
Yeah.
And I guess the fast forward part is that we managed to, which is really exciting. And the coolest thing about that is in the, I would say roughly 9 months it took to figure out how to, sell our other products and, refine. We made the product in the time it took from being able to ship it to shipping it. We refined games, we added, video tutorials, illustrated instructions, and all these things. And in the process, I ended up building a team that I would say is far more valuable than building an object, at all. So it's, I think the thing I'm most proud of right now is working with a group of people that are aligned on a vision and are dedicated to delivering really something that we world should have right now, which is something that gives us an excuse to step away from our screens and be able to still engage with complex and interesting, unique gameplay.
Yeah. Now, beyond more games with what you have you considered further developments in the system itself, advancements in the way that the pieces can be used, so that you can add in more options for games?
Yeah. So the design of the system means that every game piece can play an infinite amount of games. So that, in case that's not clear, the more Blinkx you have, the more capabilities your system has. So games can be more complex. The kinds of fields that you play with, I think, can do a lot more as you are building your, growing your library of Blinkx games. But I think your question's probably a little bit more to, will we be increasing the capabilities of the technology inside of a single game piece? Is that
I guess that's a little bit more like what kind of I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few things that I think have come up that are we knew from the beginning are things that players would really like, and it was just a matter of like when to introduce them and how to introduce them. And so one of the things that a lot of people would really like for Blinkx would be sound. The games themselves, they don't have any sound. They have the sound of the pieces, clicking together, and it's like playing domino. But when you think smart tabletop game system, you also think, oh, there could be some voice narration, or the pieces could, chirp and respond to each other. Down the road, not too far out, you shouldn't be surprised to see a Blink that has the ability to communicate with your phone.
Ooh.
Right now, they don't communicate with any external devices, and that's purposeful. We didn't want you to have to need your phone or computer to get started in playing. Once we connect a single Blink to your phone, now you can think of all the capabilities that come with that. You can offload some very complex behavior to a really high-end processor. You can also do remote gameplay, so me playing at home versus somebody somewhere else. You can also add sound using the speakers on your phone. And so I think that, we'll try and release these kind of technical upgrades in ways that remain backwards compatible, so that you don't go, oh man, I've got, these 24 Blinkx with 24 games, and they just released a new type of Blink, and all my Blinkx don't work with that game. So we want to be really conscious that, this is, and we did a lot of planning ahead of time to make them, I think my feeling was that you should be able to open a box of Blinkx in 100 years, pop in a coin cell battery or whatever you're going to power it with in 100 years, and they just work. And so, feel like that element of being able to play them just like a board game is really important.
Okay. Were you planning on more games developed by your company? I know, like you said, you've kind of gone open source that people can develop their own games too. Did you have ones that you want to develop yourself still?
Yeah. So the way we've built games so far is all the games have been finished in-house. So I mentioned that 4 of the games came from our community. They came from game jams we hosted, and we essentially are publishing those games. So we'll continue to use that model, as I think I feel like our world is moving from consumers to creators. At least that's the way I'd like to continue to see it moving. And so I think that giving people the option to make games and then also have them potentially have the stage to be able to publish their games is really cool. I mentioned that this year we'll release the next 12 games from Move 38. We're collaborating with established game designers. So you'll see some people who are familiar faces from Kickstarter. You'll see some game designers who are, very well established, and you'll have people who you've never heard of before, and they happen to make a game at one of our game jams, or they've got the developer kit and they submitted it on our forum. But that's to the point of other people making games. Will Move 38 be making games? Yeah, definitely. So Dan's our lead game designer. He's amazing. It's one of the coolest things about game design is that really the best things come out of collaborations. You sketch out this idea, you've got something in your head, you start to play it, and you get this feedback, and you're responding to what somebody is enjoying. It's like you really can't launch a successful game that just isn't fun. And so and the only way to find out if it's fun, there's no way to measure except for just play. And so this past week We dedicated 2 of the days this week to game design. We also spent some time with some of our next 6 game designers to give them the attention and be able to like, oh, here, this is how we would go about this. And actually, it's shared on our forums some of our process of like, here's the GitHub repo. We'll be working on this game openly. But yeah, I guess I can also speak to some of the games in particular that we're kind of excited about. I think for Move 38, my feeling is that one of the coolest things about having smart game pieces is that you have the opportunity for the board to feel alive.
Mm-hmm.
And of our first 12 games, we wanted to be very careful about what we put out because they're abstract game pieces. They have the ability to animate and blink and pulse, and but ultimately, like, it's a new thing, and people need to be able to walk up quickly, you know, and within 30 seconds start to, you know, go, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I think that as the system gets more established, it gives us some more freedom to have a bit more depth in the games, a little bit either longer gameplay. And I think, you know, one thing that's been thrown out quite a bit is like a dungeon crawler, where you're, you know, using the Blinkx to procedurally generate and navigate this map. I think that some of my favorite games are ones that have chain reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of my favorite kind of, I would say, casual abstract tabletop games is I'm gonna blank on it. Rummikub. It's like, you know, the game starts out and you're kind of like, oh, all right, like this is, you know, poker-esque, and then all of a sudden, mid-game, you're realizing you've got these setups that just allow you to run, and I think it sets up for these amazing comeback mechanics, where like you feel like you're out of the game, and then you're able to pull off a streak. I like the fact that I think we can do some things like that with Blinkx, where you really get that kind of visual explosion, sort of the juiciness of a, I don't know, a Candy Crush, but the depth of a good board game.
Cool. Joe, you have any questions? Fine.
I think I actually did ask you guys at the convention we saw you at PAX about the possibility of maybe incorporating like pictures onto the Blink discs.
Yeah, great question. So, is this video or just audio?
We're
Both.
video. We're both.
Yep.
Video as well. I was gonna say, I'm like, so one of the things, I'll break out a sketchpad. Oh, yeah. So like, this is a side view of a Blink. Right now, the top membrane is fused, so it's all one like solid piece. What I was drawing out here was a swappable layer on top that you have the ability to pinch out and replace.
Oh, cool.
And so I think it adds a lot. I think there's an easier way up front, which is simply adding decals, and, you know, just kind of, that's the way we'll play test those games. But I think it's a nice one in that kind of an upgrade does not break compatibility.
Yeah.
But it allows you to mark, hey, these are my 3, you know, these are my 3 soldiers, or these are my 3, whatever they may be, and or identify unique trait and not rely on the animation of the piece, but to be able to quickly reference, oh, that's, you know, that's where the potion is, and because it's animating in this blue way, I know it's a blue potion, it works this way. So yeah, I think that's a really nice step. Once again, I think we've already seen some people in the dev community start to try some things out like that, and then use pieces on top of them as well. I think for us, you know, one of the nice things about being open with it is that people can make it and try it out. As far as what we'll be shipping and releasing, you know, we're going to take an approach that it's like, yeah, if it really enhances gameplay, we're definitely going to get behind it and really push on it.
Yeah, because even with the different colors, I just thought you could even use it for like role-playing games that denote different status effects. You can put a miniature on top, and the color that it's showing is like, oh, you know, this guy's poisoned, or this guy's has this effect on him.
Yeah. I think being accessories to your other games is something that like is a really cool way to incorporate Blink. I think oftentimes also some of our game ideas come out of that. We don't use dice anymore at the office. We roll the widgets dice, and it's like, yeah, if you need to roll 16 dice, you just put together 16 Blinkx and press 1 and they all roll. You also don't have to worry about losing them. It's a good way to play dice on a plane.
Now, beyond working on Blinkx, is there other stuff that your company is working on related to tabletop at this point in time?
We've worked on some other things related to tabletop, in so much as the way Blinkx might interact with other elements. So whether it be accessories that add on to the Blink, we produced those game mats for PAX Unplugged, and the response to that was really huge. And so it's like, oh, right, Blinkx are so abstract that anything that, you know, creates more of a magic circle, lets you kind of participate in the world that each of the games creates, is really helping. As far as you know, we're not actively working in, like, you know, a lot of smart game companies are kind of working in like the Alexa space or voice. I think there's some interesting work to be done there. I honestly haven't had a compelling experience myself. And could you hang on for a sec? Yeah, cool. Sorry. But yeah, we're really focused on Blinkx and the next 12 games. I mean, releasing 12 games last year, I think was like, oh, okay, you know, yeah, we'll release 12 games. Then it's like, oh, that's 12 games. Like 12 games going out at once, 6 games going out the next batch. There's a lot to focus on just for the games themselves. So I think it's a long way of saying, you know, there's little experiments that we're doing in the office, but we're a 4-person team at the moment, so it's we're pretty all in on the next 12 games and really getting these, you know, getting Blinkx out there.
Cool. I think I've hit on most of the points I was thinking to hit on. Joe, did you have anything else to add?
Not really, no.
All right. Cool. Yeah, I think that's about all I kind of wanted to ask about Blinkx here and inquire with it. What's the kind of projection for the next bit of stuff this year? Do you have like a time frame, or is it just as you get it done?
Yeah, we have a schedule. We always, you know, follow that rule that, you know, there. What is it? A late game is just a late game, but a bad game is forever a bad game. You know, that does allow our timeline to push occasionally, but right now we're headed toward the Q1, Q2 Kickstarter launch for the next 6 games. So I would say pencil in on your calendar March 15th. That's what we're driving toward. And our second launch of games is for the fall. So we'll have all 12 games shipping for holidays of 2020. So those are, I would say, the biggest milestones for 2020. In the immediate actually, for anybody listening, anybody in the New York area. We're co-hosting with Playcrafting and Microsoft at Global Game Jam. And so I believe there's over 750 people registered to be there. And we'll be bringing 10 developer kits and supporting up to 10 teams with up to 3 members per team, making their own games on Blinkx. So that's kind of our other big commitment this year, is really being out there with games, hosting game jams, showing up at the game conventions, and just growing the community. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I guess it would be silly of me not to drop that currently our Blinkx core sets are shipping. Our Blinkx expansion sets are sold out, but will be back in stock at the end of February. And the core sets are selling for $99 on getblinkx.com.
Excellent. Well,
Cool.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Thanks, Joe. This was really nice, and I'm looking forward to following along. And yeah, maybe we'll see some games coming from you.
Never know.
Awesome.
All right.
Have a great Saturday.
You
and
too.
We'll talk soon.
Yep.
You as well.
All right. Let me make sure the call is good. Let's see if I can get this quickly. It's close. I do that. Does it fix it? It's close to being correct. It's close. Anyway, I guess as I fix up the visual here, at least for now, let's move on to our topics. It was a very nice interview we had there. So, I guess I'll start with talking about my experiences at PAX South when it comes to tabletop.
Yeah. How was the convention, sir?
It was good. The thing about the PAX South is, I think it is a much, in a way, more intimate situation than even PAX Unplugged was. Like, the large room they had was filled, but it was I would say it's not nearly as large as PAX Unplugged area was, with the possibility for, because I could walk through their show floor and at least walk by everything pretty easily in like under an hour. I could take a walk through it and actually take time to look at what's going on, you know.
Right.
Which I don't think you could have done at Unplugged if you're actually paying attention to what everything is. I think it would have taken a lot longer to do that. Don't mind me blowing my nose. Again, Plague.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Plague. So, there was actually a 50-50 tabletop video game presence, I would say. I'll have to have an opportunity to talk about the video game side of things, but I think I'll keep it to the tabletop stuff today. I think the first people I talked to was this group called Runaway Parade. They had an interesting board game they were showing off called Fire Tower, which was a lot like the and I can only remember the name of it. It was that firefighting game where you were in a forest, where we're working together.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. I can't.
The thing about this one is it's competitive.
Ah.
So you're trying to both snuff out the fire near your tower while spreading the fire near your opponent's towers, and each of you have a tower in one of the corners of the map. So you're playing cards and doing effects to sort of manipulate where the fire is, and then you have to worry about things like wind and stuff. I did have a interesting interview with someone from Double Games about surviving the game. It's kind of like a deck building, push your luck kind of game where you build up a supply of equipment and you then take on challenges with said equipment. And it's deck building because you draw your hand of the equipment that you built together, like, you know, various weapons and enhancements, and things you face will have different challenges that you need. So it has that kind of deck building mechanic of, like, having, like, an attack stat and, like, a money spending stat, but this has an entire idea that you're still kind of pushing your luck as your character has health. It's almost as if you're, like, in a like a competitive survival game kind of thing, where you're trying to go through different, like, levels of stuff, kind of very Running Man-y, I'd say. You know, where you're kind of going through challenges to try to survive and get to the end. Except these are, like, different. These could be just enemies. They could be traps. They could be various different things. There are ways that you can heal yourself. You have to watch out for that. There are 3 classes you can choose from. The class you have depends on how much money you spend on it. Like, the soldier was the cheapest, but has the least amount of health. And there is some things you can run into at the end, toward the end game, where if you have no way of defending against it, it can kill you instantly as the soldier.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's like a card that will do you 30 damage if you don't defend against this part of it, and 30 damage if you don't defend against that part of it. And as the soldier, you have 50 health. As a maximum normal. While the other 2 cost a little more and have different abilities, they also have, like, 80 health then, too. You know, they have a chunk of health extra. So it was a very interesting game. It was interesting to kind of see it, to talk with the guy about it. Very interesting aesthetic. I liked the idea of it a bit, so that was a good one to talk to. I talked to some people at Elf Creek Games with Atlantis Rising, which is all about, like, you're in Atlantis, it's the gods have taken wrath against you, it's the end of the world kind of thing, and you have to escape to somewhere.
Okay.
You have to, like, create this, like, portal device that will get your people, your faction of Atlanteans out to, I think he said, like, depending on where in the world you get it from, like, what language translation depends on where it sends you to, you know, like, where, like, in a mountain range, somewhere that we would know about, you know, oh, the Atlanteans fled to there, or something. Anyway,
right.
It's a little bit of worker placement, resource management, but you also have to contend with, like, the city being destroyed around you kind of thing. So you might put a worker down in order to either get some material or to do something to help you build this gate. But if that area floods, then you don't lose that worker, but you get it back, but you don't get the action. Things like that happened. So it was an interesting dynamic game. That one would have been an interesting one to try, but the thing is, it was 60 minutes to 2 hours of gameplay, and I did not have the time to build that. You know?
Right.
And that was a 1 to 7 player game. And then I talked to all the people at the indie tabletop scene. There was Mecha Riders, which was an interesting 2v2 game, where it's you're a set of 3 mechas fighting another set of 3 mechas. The way that they have it, the person was saying basically because their main thing is either they're going to kickstart it, or they were seeing if one of the publishers wanted to pick it up. If a publisher wanted to pick it up, they could change the aesthetic to it, you know? They're going for this 3D free mecha kind of thing. So that was interesting. Gladius was interesting because it's a Coliseum game without being in the Coliseum. You are the spectators betting on the events. So you'll see these events where, like, it'll say, like, these are the things that are favored, here are the people, and then you play cards which will either enhance or be a negative to the groups that are fighting. Mm-hmm. And depending on, you will also put bets on these various places. So sometimes you might want someone to lose, and you might want to make it look like you want them to win, kind of things like that. You can be very tricky,
Gotcha.
like your bets. Because until everything's down and moved around, you don't know how everything is assembled. Let's see here. There was That's Wizard. That was a card game about dueling wizards. That you all have you basically go through all the spells at the beginning of the game and choose a certain kind of hand of them. And you do that every time. And so both players do that. And so the thing is, though, there's schools of magic and levels of magic. So if you want a very high level of a school, you have to get all the lower levels of it. And if you only have 7 cards in hand, and I want a level 4 spell, well, if I play that early on, I'm letting people know I have that, and they can counter that, or play something different in response to that, you know? It's sort of like, right. It's a game of, like, you choose you kind of build together a hand of stuff, and you play against the person for a number of rounds. And it's, as you learn your opponent's hand, you kind of begin to predict what they're going to do. And that's the thing is, like, you try not to give away a lot of information. And, like, you could go for having a level 4 of something, but it's a very powerful effect. But again, like, using it early on will let people know that you've got levels 3, 2, and 1, and people know what those cards are and can predict and work against those. Mantis Falls was the coolest game, I think, because that was a 2 to 3 player hidden role game. Much like Resistance, but with only 2 to 3 players. Because what it is you're playing against this kind of cardboard, the board itself in a way, and you don't know if it's this like mob kind of thing, like 1920s, 1930s mob kind of thing, where people are either witnesses or an assassin. Now the thing is, you don't know if there's going to be an assassin at all. There might not be. You might all be witnesses.
Right.
That's the first big thing, is there's that random chance of, like, someone being the traitor, the assassin, or not. And then very early on in the game, the assassin has to be careful because the witnesses have things that can, like, really just destroy the assassin very early in the game. And it's like, if you're playing with 3 players, the assassin only has to kill one of them. He doesn't have to kill both of them. And it's basically building up the best hand, and then traversing, like, this. It's like you're traveling down this road, and you can either choose to stay put or head farther down the road, and the object of the witnesses is to get to the end of the road alive. But, like, they'll face challenges along the way, which could kill them anyway. So, I mean, like, you could still die from the challenges on the road. So, that's right. That's the kind of thing of, like, you're playing against both of them. And I thought that was a very interesting game. Very nice people to talk to. Rock Manor Games was there with Set a Watch. We've talked to them before. I talked to them briefly. I didn't go into too much because, you know, we've talked to them before. As I said, you know, it was nice to say hi. There was Aegis, the combining robot game, which was another robot game. This one was, you have teams of 5 robots, and the thing is, you're battling out with the teams of robots, and they have the ability to combine and go Voltron. And you could combine all 5 of them into, like, and then you'd have advantages of it, but there's also advantages to having, like, all your 5 robots separately kind of thing. So it was interesting dynamic of that game. And then Mission Planet Hex was the last one, which was like a very retro style 60s game of dice rolling and exploring a kind of planet kind of thing. So it was very interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot of interesting things in the indie tabletop scene. And that was, most of the people I talked to were the indie tabletop people. There was through other companies, a couple companies that we spoke to previously, a couple companies that, like, I've spoken to in previous years and just weren't big on talking to us. I don't know if they would have been now. I was waiting on them. But, you know. Anyway, so that was my tabletop adventures at PAX South. I guess let's hit the normal docket. Why don't we do that?
Okay.
Theros Beyond Death, it's out. I don't know how much I want to say about, you know, like, it's Theros Beyond Death. It's out. Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with it at all, which I don't know how many people are for the Magic scene is, it's a one-set revisit to Theros. It's talking about the character of Elspeth getting out of the underworld of Theros and coming back alive. Just the way that they basically said what happened to her at the end of Theros, that she went to the underworld of Theros, which is a very Greek underworld. People thought she might be coming back alive at some point in time, just because of the nature of, like, a lot of Greek myths and death. And they did that, basically. I think the big thing that they had here, I think we talked about briefly. I don't know if we talked about... They brought back sagas. They've got devotion. They've got their enchantment type stuff, of course. And enchantment creatures back again. A lot of the stuff that they had in previous sets. And gods and all that crazy stuff. Like a lot of what they had before. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the sagas and stuff. I was like, okay, they brought them back.
Well, it was technically a good place for sagas, as, you know, they put sagas in Dominaria because it was very, like, there's epic tales to tell. In the Greek set, there's epic tales to tell, so I get it.
Right.
But yeah, so if you're interested at all in it, it is out now. I probably will check it out. I don't know when I'll get stuff for it, but I probably will at some point. Not sure when. But
right.
We'll talk about subclasses.
Yeah, we can talk about subclasses.
Arcana came out in January. Subclasses. They call it subclasses part 1, so I assume that they'll have a whole bunch more at some point.
See, I really like the fact that they're doing this in general with the subclasses instead of just adding more and more and more classes. Just giving you more choices for the classes that you're taking. I think that's better than having to sit there going, okay, let me look through 10 books to see what class I want to be. So in that manner of speaking, I think that's good. Although I know it is starting to get a little on the bloat side of it. But choice is very nice. I like the Barbarian Path of the Beast.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
And the origin options they give.
Yeah.
I think they work really well. I like, hey, one of your parents was a lycanthrope.
My papa was a werewolf, and I got some werewolf blood in me, and it's got me all, like, snarly.
Or powerful druid, or the Fae gifted you some abilities.
Or an animal spirit dwells within you.
Hey, get that spirit out of me! I did not invite it. That's just rude.
And they have some interesting abilities, yeah.
Yeah, you get some interesting things. You get a, let's see. You can choose to have a bite attack, claw, or tail attack.
Each time you rage. And then also, like, you get a feral spirit, which gains you either, like, a swimming speed, a climb speed, or, like, bonuses to jumping.
I'm a kangaroo!
Yeah. You basically have rabies.
Yes, infectious fury.
You have rabies, and you give people rabies.
That is kind of funny.
The barbarian foaming at the mouth. It's a good sight. You know, we just like see that and we're like, yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
It is kind of funny though. Then what? Call to hunt.
Yes.
You can spread your ferocity to your allies.
Yes. Good for them.
Hey, bard, be a barbarian.
Arg! This has to be like the little. Like,
I will sing a very angry song.
It's gonna be like the squirrely bard that's like very like, you know, unnecessarily like weak and wimpy. He's like, Arg!
Okay, when you did that, I just pictured, and this is going to be an old reference, Tiny Tim being infected by this.
Please, sir, can I murder you now with rage?
No, not that Tiny Tim.
Oh,
Tiny Tim, the singer, who's in Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
I was going. I actually went Oliver Twist there, even too, because I went, please, sir.
Yeah. No. Tiny Tim, who did Tiptoe Through the Tulips, instead it's Tiptoe Through the Dead Bodies with me.
Sure.
I'm going to sing very loudly into your face now.
Tiptoe through the bodies, they're my enemies.
Oh, God. Monk, you got Way of Mercy.
Yeah, Way of Mercy is an interesting one because it's kind of a less combat-y one, I'd say. You get proficient with Insight or Medicine.
You get Hands of Healing at 3rd level.
Yeah, you can kind of heal people.
Or Hands of Harm.
Yeah, that's true. So you can be like, what? They know
Death
Reiki! They know Death Reiki!
God, no.
Level 9 Death Reiki!
No.
Come on! It exists. I will go to bat. Okay. Yeah, no. I've made fun of a friend of mine learned how to do Reiki, and we were like, so you learned level 9 Death Reiki, which is when you can learn to channel people's energy to harm them. Well, guess what? That's what monks learned. Level 9 Death Reiki. Wah!
No.
Then you can
Death Reiki for
you can expel a fart of poison. Toxic miasma.
No Death Reiki for you.
I moved on to not.
I'm just saying.
To death farts.
Because that's much better.
You got me coughing. Yes.
Because Death Farts is better than Death Reiki.
Always. Ooh.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, they have a noxious aura that they can create. Makes ranged attacks at a disadvantage. People can get the poisoned. You get better healings.
Come on, get down with the sickness.
And you can put people into a suspended animation then at 17th level. Be like, what? Paralyzed has immunity to all damage. Well, you can't die when you're in suspended animation, but that doesn't mean that people couldn't, like, chain you up or something, or, like, put you in a place where that when you're out of that suspended animation, you will just die. Like, if you're immune to all damage, and you're in suspended animation for 4 days, I could just, like, dump you in a volcano, so when you wake up, you're like,
Oh, God.
I would totally dump someone in a volcano if I used the Hand of Mercy on them, and I wanted to get rid of an enemy that way.
You're so merciful.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, I won't kill you outright. I'll just blow you. I'll just throw you in a volcano. Like
There's suspended animation for a number of days equal to your monk level until you end into the effect early. No action required. And they appear dead. Yep. I just touch them, and I'd be like, suspended animation. And there'll be a lot of people that will just end up in volcanoes, and I don't know anything about them. I mean, I could see, like, D&D, like, mystery adventure, where the enemy is a high-level Way of the Mercy monk who's been serial killing people and dumping them in volcanoes. That'll be the villain.
You're horrible, man.
Look, I've just thought of a very good villain for you guys.
You're just horrible.
Mm-hmm. Just like, whoop! Undo!
Whoop, there it is!
Whoop! Into the caldera, and then undo! Anyway.
Yeah. Then we got Oath of the Watchers, Paladin.
Now I want to do like D&D CSI or D&D like Law and Order or something.
Don't.
I believe he was hit with a sword. I don't know. That could have been a scimitar. Anyway, yes, Oath of the Watchers. I don't know what to say anymore.
Me either.
I ruined everything. It's all right. I do that.
When don't you?
Uh-huh.
What are we going to do with you, Matt?
They're protecting the mortal realms from extraplanar creatures. In general. I think this way could be, I guess they're aiming more towards fiends, though, because have you ever alert for corruption? Though I guess they could also see corruption being from, like, Celestials, too. They keep it very open-ended on that end.
Yes.
But they do say, like, loyalty never gifts or favors from fiends. I guess they focus on fiends, but I could see them, like, being like, if they suspect Celestials too much, they might be like, hey now, Celestials, no doing your thing either. I just could see it as a possibility. They do leave it open-ended a little bit there. Anyway, yeah, you get a number of spells. Things like Banishment, Hold Monster as your Oath spells. They have a Channel Divinity, where they get advantage on saves, where you can give a number of creatures advantage on saves.
Yep. Aura of the Sentinel. You emit an aura of alertness while you aren't incapacitated. When you or any other creature of your choice within 10 feet of you rolls initiative, each person gets bonus initiative equal to your charisma modifier.
Mm.
That's kind of nice. Vigilant Rebuke. You learned how to magically chastise anyone.
Bad.
What are you, a bomb?
Bad. Son, you have been listening to the fiends too much. I keep telling you, no fiends. Beelzebub, the Flayer of Souls, is not welcome in our house. I know you love his rock. I know he's good at the rock music, and he knows how to have a good party, but that doesn't mean anything. Beelzebub, have you talked to you? Now, Beelzebub, do I have to call your mother about this? No! Don't involve my mother! Anyway.
But you also said a good potty.
Body. But my nose is stuffed up, so it sounded like potty.
I've got a good potty about this.
Mm-hmm. At 20th level, you get the ability to murder elementals, fays, fiends, and aberrations really well. Yeah, so another interesting one. Last one is Warlock Noble Genie as your patron. So you get a genie patron. Neat. They get some
noble genie.
Mm-hmm. You get expended spell list. You get a magical vector that binds a creature to you and your patron's menagerie. So you get like a lamp, an urn, a ring with a compartment, something like that. That it tethers you to a creature, which is interesting. So you basically make, like, I guess, a deal with a creature, in a way, kind of like a genie with a lamp kind of thing.
That means you get an itty-bitty living space.
Mm-hmm.
But you can remake your vessel doing an hour-long ritual if you happen to lose it somehow.
You can get elemental resistance, protective wish, where
you get a bonus to your wisdom and perception checks.
Yeah.
Based on your charisma.
Charisma? Wee. Yeah. There's Genie's Entertainment and Collector's Call. So it's a lot of interesting abilities. The idea of being like...
And Protective Wish. You missed that.
Well, I said Protective Wish there. Sorry. It's basically when you or the tempered creatures attack, you can use a reaction of teleport, swapping places with that person to basically take the hit. Or to have them take the hit for you, kind of things. It's an interesting thing of, like, binding you to another person and having abilities around that kind of bound that gives you bonuses that way.
Yeah.
Well, the Genie's Entertainment's interesting because you can teleport to your patron's court in the elemental planes. Yup.
Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yes. So,
said why?
All of them have very interesting aesthetics to them and very different ones.
Yeah.
Definitely, as usual, they come out with interesting things for the subclasses. For Unearthed Arcana, I mean.
You don't say.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add about the subclasses?
No, I think they're interesting, and
we went over them.
I can see some uses of them.
I'll go over this one briefly. Then, Explorer's Guide to Wildermount. It's the Critical Role campaign setting. Matt Mercer's been working with the D&D team to come out with a book that's all about that. Critical Role's still very popular. You know, it is one of the biggest RPG shows ever, if not the biggest. Over time-wise, I would say it's the biggest. It was the original RPG show that people watched. But I don't know about now, if there's any others that are rivaling with it. That's a kind of hard thing to say, you know, for popularity now. But nonetheless, though, if you wanted to be within the Critical Role campaign world, this would be what it would be for it. They're including subclasses, spells, magic items, monsters, and much more that have been within the Critical Role campaigns, which are being converted into such a way that they are technically then legal within D&D if you wanted to use them. So there's stuff that Matt Mercer and his group had put together and put out before that you wanted to use that you felt would be like more just third party. Now it's officially going to be first party. So, yeah.
Cool.
I think that's another. It's one of those things I see and I'm like, cool. You know what? I'm fine with that. That's an interesting one. They're using a long-standing system for it, not a long-standing game, and using that. It's the continuing of what I feel like Magic or Wizards have been doing a lot of lately. So, yeah. It's a 304-page book. It's coming out in March. They just announced it now. So. I probably could be throwing some images up here, but I'm feeling sickly and trying to hurry a little bit.
It's okay. I think we can all forgive you.
Yeah. The Extinction Curse is the newest adventure path from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's not out yet. The first adventure, I don't think, has been released yet. But the player's guide to it is out now. 9 new backgrounds. It introduces creating a circus tricks to establish your legacy under the big top. I don't know what the Extinction Curse has to do with circuses, but it interests me a little bit that they've got like a circus theme to a Pathfinder adventure path. At least the first part of it. Maybe everybody starts out in a circus kind of thing that you're on performance. Yeah, I mean, that might be it. It's that you either start out directly involved with it or indirectly involved with it. It's free, so it will give you an idea if you'd be interested in the Extinction Cursed adventure path, for one thing. And it would also help you establish characters within the adventure. The player's guides are always great for the adventure paths. I always recommend them for people that are going to be playing one of the adventure paths in Pathfinder. An Extinction Curse sounds cool. I mean, that sounds like a neat name for an adventure path. So they won that one. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I found the circus. The show must go on is the first adventure, and it's the Circus of Wayward Wonders. Is the rise from remote town of Abington. Player characters are the stars of the show. Ringmaster turns up dead. Fate of the traveling circus entertainment hangs in the balance, and you must put on a successful show and find the killer. Oh, that's actually really interesting. That you have to keep the circus going and find a killer in amongst it. So it's got investigations too. But it leads you to, like, of course, the other adventures. Yup. Oh, it's the dead gone Borden. Wow. Has left, like, a extinction curse. Good for dead gods. Sounds like an interesting one. But, okay. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about for the main topics was Dishonored. The video game series is getting an RPG done by Modiphius. They're using their 2D20 system, same that they do for Conan and Star Trek Adventures. They are making a streamlined version of it, they say. So they probably are cutting down on some of the things to keep it a little bit more video gamey, fast-paced. It's a 300-page book. It introduces the Empire and what's going on in it, like assassins and criminals and explorers and crown loyalists, depending on what kind of protagonists you want to have, antagonists. The Void, which gets the reality-bending powers that the characters from Dishonored have. Mini campaign. And it's kind of supposed to be a little more narrative for the 2D20 system. So.
Cool.
I mean, heck, Dishonored was an interesting game. Interesting world. So, it doesn't seem like a bad world to set up a game in. I'd be interested to see the book itself and check it out. It's another one that's very interesting for Modiphius to be doing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Oh, plague.
Yes. Neither of us have been well this week.
No, if we didn't have our guest on, I think I probably would have, even if it was another week off, I probably would have skipped the show, technically.
Right.
But with our guest here, I was like, I'll put together a show. Get it out here for people.
We'll keep it as a short one. We can end with that. We don't have to do the
basic outros of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, there wasn't a lot in tabletop anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we had Thursday game. I don't know if you had your other games.
I didn't have the ones on Tuesday. I didn't have the ones on Tuesday or Thursday the week before. So, I mean, yeah. Which would have led us into... Because we had this show 2 weeks ago, which would have led us into it. Yeah. Yeah, I had nothing the week before PAX. And this week after it, I only had Children of Wrath.
Right.
Which they got back on the boat. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You got back on the boat, you got to the next town, and you got a mission. That's kind of like putting you in the direction that...
From a slightly shady person.
He's not shady. I don't know what you're talking about. Shady. I don't know what you're talking about. The Elven Man is perfectly fine. And I think that's...
slightly shady.
I think that's most of what we did since the last show.
We haven't really had a chance to do any actual board games or anything.
Then we had a Grinding Gears, though, too.
Oh, yeah, we had a Grinding Gears. You guys have finished half of the dungeon so far?
We found our new mayor, but now we have to find a barbarian. And something else, but I can't remember what the something else is.
Well, you need to find Fedora himself.
Yeah, that's right.
And you guys also fought a gelatinous cube.
We did.
Kind of.
Only one.
After you figured out what was suggested originally with what to do?
I said let's go with that. Everybody else changed their minds after that.
Yeah.
I was like, let's do that. And then they were like, no, let's do this and this. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, well.
I thought it was a fine suggestion too. But yeah, so I think that's all the tabletop weekly stuff had. So, ending the show. Consult the tabletop. If you have any questions for us, you can throw it out here in chat, in my Discord. Message us directly at Discord. Message us at Twitter, at Dracovin, at JWSeeker81. Discussing Tabletop at yahoo.com. In the description, in the comments of the YouTube video when it eventually comes up there. All that stuff, you can reach us there if you have any questions about anything. So.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go and rest up because at least I'm not. At least I'm not running grinding gears tomorrow. You are, and you seem like you've recovered more than me.
I'm doing a bit better, although my nose has been a little drippy today. So overall, I'm not horrible.
I will be awful for the next couple of days. Probably. I don't know. I'm at least better than I was the other day, but after Children of Wrath, I got much sicker, so that night was not pleasant.
Ugh.
I got, like, awful chills, and, like, and I had a really bad night after Children of the Wrath. You know, it was like I wasn't feeling that bad for Children of Wrath, but afterwards, it hit me so badly. I was in the coming down with it section at that point in time, so. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining me as usual, Joe. Thanks again to our guest, John, for coming on and talking to us about the Blinkx system. We will theoretically be back next week. I'll schedule, if something happens with the schedule, I'll inform about the Discord, Twitter. If you're looking for RPGs, Grinding Gears is good to go for tomorrow, and Children of Wrath for next week. Legacies of Kain, Records of Evil, theoretically, it seems like I might have to move some things around with Legacies of Kain. Maybe might have to cancel it again for another week. I'll have to find out. We'll find out. I'll let people know what's going on with those two. And that'll be it for now. I'm going to go and rest and hopefully feel better. And I hope everybody else feels better for the rest of their weekends.
Yep. Feel better, Matt.
Yep. So, thanks again for joining, and bye, everyone.
Bye.